Welcome to the Dear Doc podcast, where we will discuss the business of running a dental practice with a panel of experts. Now, your host, Dr. Christopher Hoffpower.
Hey guys, this is Doc Huffpower. I'm coming to you again from my studio here in Alvin, Texas. And today I'm going to be talking with Reuben Kamp again from Dark Horse Computers. Now, Dark Horse is a great place for you guys to go if you need any kind of computer help or any kind of computer service. They're really, truly full service from cradle to grave, so to speak. And we're actually going to talk about some cradle to grave today, or at least some lifetime support for Windows 7. So, Reuben, take it away. You've been on the Business of Dentistry, made this big announcement a few days ago, and you have been looking for any interesting posts, anything that you can help with to help our viewers to be a little bit safer, since you're here to talk about HIPAA concerns and computers in the dental office. So talk to us a little bit about the first one that you pulled up. You were going through, you said, Doc, we have to talk about this one. So talk to us about that.
Well, the first one's about backups, and we'll get into backups. I just want to give everyone an update on what has happened this week in kind of the world of dentistry, where our industry made CNN and ZDNet and all these, security website feeds. Dental got a spotlight shined on it this week, not in a great sense.
And for once, it wasn't because some dentist did something stupid and is being flamed on media. It actually was something bad that happened to a dental office. So let's talk about that. Yeah,
no animals were harmed during this week. On Monday, as many of you know now, because this has kind of been widely circulated, I mentioned CNN picked it up, a company out of Wisconsin who is housed in the Wisconsin Dental Association building was hacked. And this company had approximately, I say had because who knows what's going to happen afterwards, 500 clients in the dental specific. 400 of those reported to have been encrypted with ransomware. And this was on Monday. As of Friday, about 120 of them were back online. So leaving the vast majority of them still without.
Oh my God, I can't imagine.
Schedule, take x-rays, see anything.
We're so dependent on tech these days. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's the real disaster now. Your tech goes out, you're done. Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
People put a lot of trust in companies like us, right, to handle this properly. Chris, you're a very busy guy. You're seeing patients and recording podcasts with me. I'm playing guitar and doing all this stuff. These are things like HR and payroll. You're like, all right, I hired somebody competent, and it's delegated and on to the next fire. So again, we had a lot of offices trusting this company, and they got hacked themselves. And because they did not have, if you go on the website, I'm sure you guys can figure out what the company's name is. But if you go on the website, you'll see HIPAA this, HIPAA that, we're secure, all that stuff. The reason this happened is because they were not, right? So two-factor authentication, something very simple we all use for our banks, and even we've turned on for things even less secure than that. They didn't have two-factor authentication turned on, right? So they got hacked because they used the password dental123, all lowercase. They got access to every single.
Now, okay, so we're laughing about that.
The space ball.
I know, right? You're as big of a nerd as I am. Okay, so we're laughing about that, but there's been some real research on very complex passwords, and what it has shown is that things like your pet's name are now actually more secure than capital W, lowercase z, exclamation point, hashtag, mama needs a new pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. Because the programs now are actually created specifically to break those types of thought processes in your password. So it's actually kind of been a backslide, but Dental123, I'm thinking, is probably one that could be relatively easily guessed.
Yes. I mean, you could probably break that in a matter of seconds, honestly.
Oh yeah, brute force, man. Brute force hacking easily.
Right. Right. And when you log into something, this is how hackers are thinking. When you log into a website and you type in your username and your password, and it says incorrect password, the site is just giving them information. They know the username is accurate, and now they just need to brute force the password. If it says invalid credentials, it's very vague. They don't even know if they have the right password at that point. So they're thinking down to the level of, okay, I have this information. I've eliminated that from the problem set. Now I'm just worrying about the password. And this is a major catastrophe, and not a great light to be shined on the IT industry, because there's a lot of people that say, like I said, we're secure.
You guys are getting yours now. We have to deal with this all the time, Reuben.
It's crazy. I have, the Google Authenticator with a list of all my codes, right? And it's just an endless list of two-factor authentication, but you can't get into our system without my face and this code that expires in 5 seconds. It's unfortunate, because that is the simplest thing you can do. You set it up once, it's done. But if you don't set it up, you're saying that you don't care.
Yeah, you made a comment off the air, and I thought it was gold. Hey, hackers out there, don't worry about hacking dental offices. Hack Reuben, because he has access to how many dental offices?
We currently support 450 dental. It's 5,500 endpoints. So that's how many workstations and servers we have total. So again, if you're able to, we're a target because of this. If you're able to penetrate our systems, just like what happened in Wisconsin, you now have access to everybody.
Oh, unforeseen consequences. You guys have BAAs, which means you are subject to HIPAA fines, and that's $10,000 per incident. Oh my goodness.
It is. So
I mean, never coming back from this.
When you work with an IT company and they're like, well, you can do your backup, but we'll do the antivirus, run for the hills, right? If they're not coming in and like our offering, it's like, this is what is mandatory to be a customer. And if they say no, we walk away. We're willing to do that because I don't want to risk me and 25 employees. I don't want to risk their jobs because of one client who doesn't want to do a backup. That doesn't make any sense.
So real quick, that brings us pretty naturally to another thing that we had spoken about, which is the things that dentists can do. I know you have a whole list over there of the things we're going to talk about, but so there's a lot of dentists out there and they feel pretty confident doing their own stuff, and more power to them. I don't have that kind of time. That's why I got you guys. So what can a dentist do on their own? What are the standards that you would tell them to set for themselves so that they can take care of their own stuff? I mean, I know one of the big infamous things is they do backups, but they never check the validity of the backup, so they don't know if the backup's working.
Right.
How long should they wait for updates that come in for their computer? And which updates really are critical to be run? I notice sometimes you guys will not run an update and you're like, don't run this. And then I'll come back later and you've taken care of it. But I suspect it's because you're trying to figure out whether or not it's going to crash a bunch of people's systems or what problems it's going to cause before loading it. So I don't have to pay you to fix things. So talk to us a little bit about what doctors can do on their own and what little things like that they should expect if they are using someone, and that's not a sign that something's not going right. That's a sign that your IT department is actually doing their job. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so let's start with the self-managed side. There's a lot of people out there that run a smaller practice. It's a lot easier to do. If you have 3 computers, you don't even have a server. One of them is just called the server. It's a workstation. So we'll start with the updates. So updates, if you look at what the laws in HIPAA say, and you look at what cyber liability insurance requirements are, you have 48 to 72 hours to patch something, right? Unless you make a reason, you document it. I know there are some of you out there that are not going to replace your panoramic x-ray machine. They're not making a Windows 10 driver, so you're going to keep that Windows 7 computer in your office. And just, obviously, I can't tell you to spend 30 grand on a new pan.
Virtualize.
What I can say is make it the difference between negligence and gross negligence, right? And having something that's actually documented is you have to document it. So if you're going to be in that situation, make a justification for why you're doing this. There's a security hole.
Basically, write it up and store it somewhere not on your computer that is going to go down and is going to cause you all the problems.
Right.
Maybe on the cloud even. That's not exactly protected information.
Right. So that same update window applies to your antivirus software. It applies to your firewall. Anything that receives updates, right? Updates are inherently released because there's a security flaw or bug reported in the system.
Right.
And that's why Windows 7 is going to be such a huge problem, because we have the exact same version of Windows that is going to be essentially frozen January 14th of 2020, giving hackers an unlimited amount of time to find a flaw. And we're in healthcare, so we have to live to a higher standard.
All right. Fantastic. So next question. Mm-hmm. You've actually pulled a couple more of these of these posts. So what was the next one you wanted to cover? I know backups was one.
Yeah, backups was a popular one. We talk about ransomware, which can tie into backups. I know there's a lot of posts on the business of dentistry about getting hacked and locked and all that stuff. So let's
go ahead and hit that subject today.
All right. So the backup is the first response of that ransomware attack. So we can tie these two things together. So, this is what's going on in Wisconsin and in Minnesota too this week. Ransomware is not a new phenomenon this week. This is the number one.
It's not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere. They're just getting, there's really no answer for this specific strain once it's on your system besides a backup, right? Because if you have a firewall and antivirus, those are preventative measures. Really quick, firewall is your external protection. That's your missile defense system. That's why we have that base in Kauai pointed at North Korea, waiting to shoot those missiles down if they come this way. Antivirus is your internal protections. That means that the robber's already in the house, and that is your Rottweiler heading after it. So
I was going to go with sawed-off shotgun, but hey.
I got 3 dogs. Come on in my house.
Right.
So the backup system, why it is so important is because if something gets, even from a fire and flood, like we're helping a Dr. Pickett right now who had his building flooded, and we have an offsite backup. And that offsite backup is very important because fire, flood, theft, we need to have the data somewhere else than directly in the building. So HIPAA states we need a local backup, we need an offsite backup, and we need to test and make sure the backups are working. Honestly, that's the most important piece, because you can run a program. If you don't actually open it and test it, you don't really know if it's working or not. So that's why we've moved to a model that has that completely automated inside of it. So it actually takes each of those backups, boots them up into Windows, tests them, and then shoves them back down. Same system we have in your office, Chris. Right. And so, again, we can kind of get into the DIY piece. There are some good, I don't know if this is, worth your time if you're a busy practice, but if you do have some downtime, this is something that you could do. Or if you're just interested in IT, you could do this. So I recommend backing up at least once a day. We do once an hour because, as we've shown, the less data we can tell the doctor he is susceptible of losing, the happier he is. So we decided that 1 hour was a good balance and did not slow the system down.
When you do it correctly, it doesn't slow the system down. That's exactly what I was going to say. I never even notice because, you know my office. We've got 20 computers or some shit like that in my practice. Crazy. So I don't know, how many is it? It's less than 20.
It's less than 20. I think you're about 17, 18. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't put my laptops on it. I probably should actually. And that new lady who's going to be working remote, you're going to be adding hers onto my system too.
That's right. Yeah, that's a nice computer. Yep.
20. So anyway.
Sorry. So yeah, the backup.
I was working around with Reuben because, just honestly, he's a fun guy, and I speak nerds, so he's the only person I can tell my stupid IT jokes to. So.
Is there a Facebook group for IT nerd dentists? Is it just you?
We should start one. With the questions to get in. True or false? U.S. robotics modems could be changed from 2,400 to 5,600 baud by flipping a switch.
Yeah, there's a test.
What's
your CompTIA certification number? To put a bow on backups, right? That's your last line of defense, right? If you're talking backups, you're already down, right? So now we're talking about recovering as fast as possible. So to give you guys a couple recommendations, if you want to self-manage, there's a program called by StorageCraft called Shadow Protect that can do full and incremental and backups. It is a manual program. Ours is an automated program, but that is, if you want to do it yourself, you can buy that program and you can test it out. That's really the only recommendation I have that for a system that can back up and recover quickly. Everything else is going to be like a crash plan, which only sends a file and folder, which means you have to manually restore. Like if you have Dentrix, you have to install a blank copy of Dentrix, transfer the database over, reattach it. Anyway, it's a disaster. Don't do that.
Dentrix and disaster in the same sentence. Who's ever heard that before? I'm gonna talk to you about that thing we talked about off air later too.
All right. Now let's flip over to, we have, should I mention the people's names who asked the question?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Okay. Emily Cooper Hortman was talking about a 3D pan that she just integrated into her office, and she was being told that she needed to upgrade all of her computers.
Oh, absolutely. She's going to need graphics card for everyone she wants to actually see a CBCT image on.
That's correct. So, existing practices, you guys have a little more revenue than startup practices. So, you might choose to upgrade more. For in the startup realm, you get the acquisition computer that can manipulate those images off the bat. Right. Maybe we do the console room, and then we leave kind of all the other computers up ready.
I think for me, my checkout computer, my check-in computer, and my lab computer don't have anything on it. That's just, they don't need it. But I think every other computer in the office, I can actually view CBCTs on. Right. I don't know. Sometimes something goes buggy, and I call you and you fix it. But
well, yeah, Budtech's still getting their the software figured out. It's the machines are beautiful. It's a good system. But absolutely, you don't have to upgrade every single computer. Just the ones that this is like the
You don't have to floss all your teeth, only the ones you want to keep. It's kind of the same thing here. You don't have to upgrade all your computers, but if you want to use them with the CBCT, you got to upgrade. Now, there is if I'm not mistaken, there is one workaround, and that is they could run it on a resident computer, and they could view it remotely by doing a remote desktop to that first computer. But guys, come on. That's a pain. Correct, right? You can do that, but that would be such a...
In some offices, you can't use the CBCT at the same time as someone else's. So while you're doing that, you can also acquire even a pan. So it's just a trade-off. Like if you're starting out, that might be a better choice. But if you're a fully operational dental practice with a busy schedule, don't mess around with that.
No. Yeah, no. It's not worth their money. Okay, so anyway. But, hey, there's your workaround. If you're a cheapskate, build one really nice computer, use it to remotely open every single CBCT. Then you're not straining your dedicated computer on your CBCT, and you can probably open 4 or 5 of them on that one computer throughout the rest of your ops. But it's a pain in the butt. So, see, that's why I don't do tech stuff anymore. I know too much to mess with it. Like, I can get myself in or I know enough to be dangerous. That's really what it is. So, all right. So the next thing I was going to talk to you about is actually the list. I wish I had this the voice changer thing here. I want to know the list. It's Deep Throat. How did they get away with calling him Deep Throat? I mean, even back then, you would think that maybe that would raise some flags. But anyway, totally different conversation. And that's why we're labeled as explicit on iTunes. So I'm a horrible person. I'm going to hell. So anyway, I was going to say, I know you have a list of the softwares that you cringe when you see a dental practice has.
The blacklist.
Blacklist.
So
okay, so first of all, what is the best patient management system? We're going to start this off on a positive note. Best patient management system out there, least problems.
It's dental. It's not even close. It's not close.
What is it?
Open Dental. It's not
Open
close.
Dental.
It's
All
not
right.
close. So yeah, I breathe a sigh of relief when I see Open Dental because I know the integrations are going to be solid. The
Right.
database is going to, like, Dentrix had this version G5 that was just broken. Like, just
Tell me about it. Well, that's where you migrated from. It was horrible.
Yeah. You can run a fine practice off EagleSoft and Dentrix. It's just OpenL can do all the same stuff. Maybe Dentrix and EagleSoft, they spend a bunch more money on their icons, so they have nice little bubbly icons everywhere.
It's prettier. It really is prettier. Curve is beautiful. Oh, man. How do you feel about Curve?
How I feel about most cloud-based softwares these days, they're just not.
How do you feel about cloud-based softwares there? Is that a? I know you can't say certain things. Can I get an answer from you? How do you feel about cloud-based softwares? A lot of people ask about them on TBOD.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think I use all cloud-based softwares to run my business, and the reason is I got people spread out all over the place geographically, and it's the only thing that makes sense. So to have a central server and Texas and North Carolina and New York and Pennsylvania, Massachusetts does not make sense, right? I'm the perfect candidate for cloud. But many of you who are asking, like, hey, should I go cloud? The answer is no, right? If you have one practice and you can put a server right next to you, if I could do this, I would do this for speed, I would do it. Because it's just unbelievable what you can do. You own your own data. You can remote people into your own server. It's just the reason to go cloud are the two main reasons to go cloud, I should say. You have multiple practices. All right. So again, resources spread out across geographic areas. And the second one is you need to have a unified database. So we have plenty of practices that are not cloud-based, but their patients aren't going back and forth. And for that reason, they can still get the speed of having a local server and the flexibility, like we talked about. But if you need a unified database and you have multiple practices, cloud is made for you right now, but it's really only that segment.
Okay, that's a fair thing. So what is the best imaging software to deal with? What is the worst imaging software to deal with? And I've let you off the hook on the worst PMS so far, but we're gonna talk about that.
All right, we'll stick to imaging. So on the imaging side, I'm big on having options. So naturally, I'm going to gravitate towards things like Open Dental, right? Where doctors like, hey, I bought this. Does this work? I'm like, yeah, because Open Dental works with everything. So naturally, you'll hear me talk about Apteryx and their product X-Ray Vision, because pick your sensor. Dexis is the only one that they lock their system down, but Gendex, Chick, CareStream, XDR, Soda, down the line, you can buy whatever you want. Throw a ScanX in there. You can do a mixed environment. So Apteryx, just like Open Dental, it's not the prettiest looking software out there, but it doesn't hamstring you in terms of what your options are when your rep comes knocking on the door trying to sell you a sensor.
I want you to talk a little bit about something a lot of dentists, they hear and they repeat. I mean, it's like we're like kids sometimes. I mean, not dentists, everyone, the dentist too. We're like kids sometimes because we'll hear people say stuff enough and we'll kind of put it into a context and then we repeat, kind of regurgitate what we've heard, but we don't necessarily truly understand it. So I want you to talk about bridge software and why it's important. And I still haven't forgotten about the worst PMS. We're going to end with that. So why is bridge software important? What is bridge software? When do you need bridge software? Talk to me.
Well, most softwares bridge. Whether you can actually see that they're doing it or not is another topic. But something that's pretty seamless is you'll see Eagle. So if you're an EagleSoft customer, their imaging software is like pretty much it looks as though it's integrated into the system, right? You don't click on an icon or anything like that to open it up. But let's say you are a Open Dental and Dexis or Open Dental and Vixwin customer.
Why are you picking on me, man?
And easy guess, right?
Right.
Open Dental plus a nice imaging software. I know you. So you'll pull up the patient in Open Dental. You can integrate it two ways. You integrate it right into Open Dental at the top, and you can have your Vixman or Dexis button, or you can use Dexis's bridge. You actually have either option to do that, and you can click in. That bridges directly over into it. But the bridging, this is another reason Open Dental is so popular. They don't make you pay for that, right? So if you are a Flex, Medento, Yappy, let's say a paperless company, and you're designing your software to integrate into Open Dental, you don't have to go and kiss the ring at Shine HQ, at Patterson HQ. You'll hear
or the belt buckle at never mind. We'll leave that alone.
No comment. You'll hear directly from these companies. Open Dental is less expensive to develop for because they don't have to cut the other company in. So
which means you get to have nice toys.
Get more development, right? When you lessen the regulation, you get more development.
Like, we're going to go into politics way too easily on this one. So, we're going to avoid that conversation. But, so the problem is, okay, let's say I've got Dexis, right?
Yep.
And, man, I love Dexis. I love Open Dental. And I've got an iCat. Actually, exactly what's going on in my office. And so let's say that iCat updates in vivo. Well, in vivo, or iCat actually, goes through Dexis to allow me to launch in vivo to see my CBCT screening, my CBCT scans. And so we're bridging from Dexis to Open Dental and from Dexis to in vivo. So if in vivo updates its software, Dexis then has to update its software, and then they have to update the bridge. Or let's say Open Dental updates, and Open Dental wasn't a nice guy, and Open Dental was like, I don't know, the worst PMS on the planet. Which one was that again?
I'm just going to say Dentrix. I'm just going to get it over with.
Dentrix is the worst. Kind of like United Healthcare. They're the United Healthcare of patient management systems.
Yeah, and the other
thing out there.
Open Dental, Dentrix, Dexis is looking at a specific number. It's looking at a chart ID, some sort of numeric. So if one of them changes the way they're looking at each other, you have to renumerate your entire database.
Right.
Which is not fun.
I just thought of another thing we're going to cover. Keep going.
Okay. So, with one small change, you can affect, in your case, 3 softwares.
Right. And so that's why bridging, guys, if you have to install a bridge for a piece of equipment, usually you really don't want to have to install a separate bridge, or you want to put it this way. The less moving parts in software is just like less moving parts in a mechanical machine. You have less problems. So get something simple.
Right. You get a Tesla that has 250 moving parts, and a normal car is about 10,000. So
right.
Yeah.
So have you bought your Tesla yet?
Yes.
I'm jealous. Which one did you get?
I got the Model 3. I pre-ordered it 2.5 years ago, and it arrived about 6 months ago.
So whenever I became a dentist, actually, when I went into dental school, when I got accepted, I told myself, one day I'm going to own a Tesla Roadster. Now they don't even make the damn things anymore.
They do.
Do they?
The new version is
I haven't seen
starting at the low price of $250,000.
Oh, that's it? Oh,
that's it, man. So
hold on, I've got my wallet.
Hey, it's 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. Can't argue with that.
Lord. I have a problem with that, because the only way they can actually do that speed, from what I understand, is very similar to the Tomahawk that was put up by Viper, is they can only do it on the machine because they don't have enough road grip unless the tires are preheated and sticky to actually accelerate at that rate.
I think it's a rolling start too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes, like, off the top of the car carrier, just get in there and
downhill.
That would be. Oh Lord. Anyway, really, really fast. That's suffice to say, really, really fast.
You should spoil yourself.
Right. I don't know. I'm a simple guy. I drive an FJ Cruiser.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. I backed into my my dumpster once because the backup camera was tilted. was canted. So I'm selling all my dirty secrets here. And I scuffed the back of my bumper, and I still have not fixed it because I'm cheap. It's not, I don't need it, you know? What am I going to do? Run into a dumpster or something? But so anyway, don't tell my wife that story. She doesn't listen to this podcast anyway. Gosh, you'd said something a little while ago, and I said we're going to talk about something. Do you remember what we were talking about at that point?
Well, the last thing we were discussing was, well, we're getting to bridging, and then we were going to talk about like end of life and what's a good budget.
Go ahead, let's jump on that. I'll see if I remember what it was, and then I'll go, I ask you another question.
Thank you to Jeff Hayes and Andy Stein for bringing this up. So how you'd want your IT companies have known about the Windows end of life, this generation, right? This is Windows 7 and Server 2008. Chris, your server.
I know. I sent you a lot of. I just sent you a lot of money, I believe, or something like that.
I sent him the original email in February, and he decided 7 months later it was a good time. But yeah, that's what you would hope. I know Andy's issue was his company didn't tell him until 6 months before.
Right.
I'm not here to judge that company. We decided to do it in February, and we'll probably send out another.
That's the reason why I'm just doing it now, because in February I looked at it and said, okay, that means I can budget $1,000 every month, and then I can go ahead and do this whenever August, September rolls around, and I'll be good. And so that's what I did, which is the benefit of having an IT company that's on the ball in the way that you guys think in mailing that out early. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was our intention. It was to be proactive. It was just an email disseminating information, but ultimately we can provide a solution to that. So we were happy to. So, and it was Windows 7 and Server 2008 are going end of life, and end of life. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Means no security updates, and security updates are necessary for us to be HIPAA compliant in the healthcare industry. So that date, again, January 14th of next year, you're going to want to either upgrade, replace any computers that are on those versions. Now, Windows 7, if that computer was relatively new, we're talking about 3 to 4 years old, it's a very clean upgrade path to Windows 10. And an upgrade is in, like, run it overnight, it'll be ready by the morning. And but for servers, they don't do a straight upgrade. So even if your hardware was good, and Chris, your case, your server was way before my time and pretty old. If it were newer, we could have backed up the data, wiped the server clean, reloaded, server 2016 or 2019, depending on the compatibility, and reloaded OpenDental and Dexys and doing all that. It's a manual process. It's a lot of labor just to do that. So some of you might be in one of those two camps. So it's really good to go to your IT company and say, hey, which of these computers can be upgraded versus replaced, because the pricing is vastly different as software upgrade versus a full tower replacement.
And then the really good news for everyone out there is when you do upgrade a server that was made in the same year that Reuben started his company, 2013.
You too.
I'm actually going to send it to you guys, or have one of your techs slap a Quattro in it and use it for my podcast video editing. I mean, it's got a couple what is it, like eight Xeons in it or something?
Yeah, it was overbuilt, which is why it's still running.
I know. I insisted on it being overbuilt. Future proof for computers, folks, is about 5-6 years. You don't.
If you buy new, if you buy refurbished and you know what you're kind of getting into, it usually has a 30 to 90-day warranty. And just it's fine. You can buy refurbished computers. I'm not going to tell you not to do that, not to make that decision as a business owner. Just
know what you're buying.
Expect a 5 to 6 year window. Just expect, if you're spending, let's say, we stock computer $749, $779 just for a base level computer we sell. That's got a warranty, brand new, will last 5 to 6 years. If you spend $300 now, you might be spending another $350 and be not only that, but dealing with the issues of that computer going down, right? And having an operatory down. I'm trying to.
We'll cover some specifics. And let's make some dentists out there a little bit more knowledgeable about computers in a couple minutes here. But there is something I want to bring up, which was a post on TBOD. Guys, you just heard me say I future-proof my computers. But if you've listened to our Meet the Experts episode where I was chatting with Reuben, Reuben, would you say it's fair to say I'm far more knowledgeable about computers than the average dentist?
You are the most knowledgeable dentist I work for. Okay. It's not. Yeah, I'm not trying to flatter you. Just
no, I appreciate that. Thank you. And Reuben doesn't fluff my feathers, guys. But the thing is I used to do this, and so I have the credentials necessary to look at a computer and go, that's what I want to buy. Most of us don't as dentists. So I'd like to actually talk about some specs, and maybe we can we can get some people to a point where they can make good decisions. And when they see something like a $15,000 quote for a single server, they can think to themselves, maybe I should call Reuben.
A good time
or
to post
anyone else.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the beauty of Facebook is crowdsourcing information. You know, for a company like us, you know, or I should say anybody out there that is like we all run public businesses and people can comment and do stuff like that. You know, we found it to be a very positive experience because we take care of our people, right? We've always defaulted to taking care of the client and let everything else take itself out, right?
So I'm going to ask you some specific questions, and you can needle me if I forget something that is important. Okay, so guys, if you're out there and you want to buy a new computer, let's say you want to go on to Dell and click some buttons yourself, all right, and save a couple bucks. My recommendation is you get an i7. I believe that the i5 is probably going to be underpowered in the next couple of years. True or false? What are your thoughts on that? You see a lot of dental offices. Where do you see it going in the next 2-3 years?
We typically save i7s for CBCT and intraoral scanner computers because we don't see the usage hit.
Right.
So our standard recommendation, and again, we tailor everything. If it's a front desk computer, you know, we're not going i7, right? Okay. We might tweak the RAM a bit because, you know, Debbie at the front desk has open dental, imaging software, insurance processing software, credit card. Like she's the one who's got everything open at the same time. So RAM is
in full. Okay, so RAM guys, you've got different types. And I'm talking to some of our older dentists guys. So please don't hate on me for explaining some simple stuff in a very real way. Some of this stuff is like you trying to do a gold foil restoration. You just don't know how. Okay, so RAM is your ability. It's your short-term memory. Okay, if someone spouts a bunch of information at you and you have to keep it all in your head, that's your RAM. Now, your hard drive is going to be your long-term memory. Those are the things that you need to remember. You kind of stack them away in files in the back of your head. So for any older docs who are looking at computers and you need a smart computer that can do a whole bunch of things at one time and think about a whole bunch of things at one time, you really want a lot of RAM. If you have a bunch of things that you need to remember, heavy things, big things like data files, images, things like that, you want a computer that has a really great hard drive. Now, I've seen people recommending, you know, over a terabyte of storage on a local machine. I don't agree with that because I think everything should be stored on your freaking server. And if your IT if your IT knows what they're doing, they can reroute even your documents from your desktop to the server and create your own little environment where the server has a little chunk that it thinks is checkout computer number 1 or checkout computer number 2 or doctor's office computer, what have you, and then nothing is stored locally.
And that is called roaming profiles for those of you that are playing IT bingo on this podcast.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so far we've covered the fact that I was wrong, and an i5 is usually all you need unless you're looking at an imaging computer. What are you recommending hard drive wise for the locals? I'd recommend almost everyone get a solid state drive now, maybe even like a 128, something small. You don't need much.
So I haven't sold a non-solid state in over 4 years. So it has been the standard, and we're talking about a literal 10x speed improvement.
Right. Things are different now because Reuben, we've talked about this. I'm from the old days when literally computers were lined with lead. The IBM machines were actually lined with lead, so they were heavier because they felt that the American market believed that something felt sturdy, it was worth more money. Do you remember the old XTs and 88 and 8088s? No, you don't, do you?
No.
I'm that old, people. So
I think they should put lead in like the mouthwash camera just to make it feel more substantial. I've always thought this before.
So anyway, the whole point is relatively recently in the world of computers, and I know when I say recently, I really mean 10 years. There used to be a thing called bus speed bottleneck that was a big problem. That's not really as much of a problem anymore. Do you guys even consider bus speed anymore? I mean, with as fast as the processors are, your wide open bus is what, over 4,000 or something? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. No, we don't consider that at all. It's really processing power, RAM, and then storage.
But that makes you think differently about the way that you're building a computer. I mean, drastically differently. So we used to have to, you can't really upgrade your RAM if your processor is going to bottleneck. So you don't have those problems anymore. So any computer that's going to be running a bunch of programs, how much RAM are you recommending? 16, 32, 64 now?
For a workstation, 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's stock computer, i5, 8 gigs of RAM, 128 solid state hard drive.
Okay. So that's your front desk.
That's your
front desk. You want to bump that up to 16 gigs?
That might even be your operatory. Yeah. So the front desk, we might be, that's a busy front desk, and we have the ability to remote into these computers ahead of time, do a nice assessment, see how much, pick on Debbie again, see how much Debbie is actually using, and then we can actually build something to that, order it specifically. But yeah, the next level up would be a 16 on the RAM if you need it. Same thing on the processor. They're kind of like BMW models. You have the 3 series, the 5 series, the 7 series. Then they have the i8 or the 9 series that we don't even need to worry about. We wouldn't know what to do with that much processing power. Then you have graphics cards, right? So computers that come out of the box, I know this is a common question we get, can do 2 displays out of the box. Your laptop that's sitting on your desk can do 2 displays.
Absolutely. And you have to look at your composite versus your legacy displays too. So like your VGA, you can't really split that effectively, right? But your display port and your HDMI can be split off into 2 legacy displays, or that's right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and you can use USB. USB 3.0 is a really nice interface. Macs can do this as well with a lightning cable. You can go USB 3 to HDMI. So sometimes in the operatories, we'll have a 12 o'clock, right? 12 o'clock monitor. Right. We'll have a 6 o'clock TV and a ceiling, or we'll have 2 TVs or 2 monitors here. So essentially what I'm saying is we need to drive 3 distinct displays, not mirroring or anything like that. Right. In those situations, we want HDMI everywhere or DisplayPort to the 12 o'clock. And we'll use a USB to HDMI adapter. All right, that is drawing power from the computer, so it's important that it's not like a micro form factor with a small power supply, because you will have some issues then when you plug your sensor in and that's drawing power and your camera's drawing power. So we typically use small form factors.
The English version of that, for all you guys who are not super computer literate, is you don't take your Civic to race against your buddy's Porsche because it doesn't have the horsepower. Your power supply is going to actually allot different amounts of power for different pieces of your computer. So anytime that you're asking it to drive another external hardware, you need a little bit more juice. So sometimes when the really, really small computers, they have a tiny power supply. You really want something a little bit bigger, like a 340 is about the minimum I build with. But what is your recommendation?
Yeah, so like the computer I built at home has a 750 watt power supply. I never want to have to worry about issues.
I'd like to see the graphics card you got in that beast. 700.
It's the new Radeon. I'll show you that.
2080, 2070.
Well, that's the NVIDIA card. What is it? I'll have to send you a picture. It's all RGB'd out and everything like that. I finally built my new computer.
We'll geek out together later. It'll be awesome. You have a nerdgasm or whatever they call that.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. So essentially, the graphics card is something that draws power as well as the RAM and the CPU and the camera. So having a computer with that, and I think the 3D units, they're Dell Precisions. I think they come stock with a 300 or 320, but they're kind of tailor-made to that. They're ready for that. maybe like a micro form factor might have a 180 watt power supply, by example. So
right.
if you don't want to have any sensor issues in camera, because that's all, I mean, heck, even a Carestream 3600 intraoral scanner or Medit, that's still drawing off of that computer.
Right. Okay, so real quick, I want to cover another piece of hardware question. ECC versus non-ECC RAM. Does it even make a difference anymore? It used to, but it doesn't anymore, does it?
Okay, so there's ECC. Again, we're used to seeing those in corporate environments now. They've kind of like, and the price is following that.
Right.
If you get just performance, non-ECC RAM, you're fine. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and you'll see this on Dell if you're configuring a server yourself or looking at a quote from your IT company. You'll hopefully see performance non-ECC. Otherwise, you're paying for something you really will never tap into.
So, folks, ECC RAM is just error correction and error checking. RAM is so good these days that it's not really a huge problem, but it used to be. So let me see here, some other things that they might not know about. Okay, I saw someone building a NAS the other day, and they really, it was actually a good friend of mine, and he really didn't know what he was doing. So I told him, said, if you're building a NAS and it's not a solid state, you need to be getting reds or blacks from Western Digital. Is that still a pretty sound recommendation?
Reds,
because the hard drive has different types of bearings in it for one thing, and they're just made to tighter tolerances. That's all still correct? So I didn't screw him.
Purple is for security cameras.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even know about the purples. Tell me about the purples.
Let's talk about long-term storage. All right, so it's the next level above the reds. So they're all the slower hard drives. They're 5,400 RPMs.
Right.
But we're really going for longevity. And for the NAS, the most common ones come in the 2-bay. Then they have 4 and up from there. Make sure you do a RAID. And a RAID is another great subject. All your servers that are actual servers have.
Let me see if I can help on this one. You ready?
Okay.
So I'm not going to cover RAIDs. Not going there. All right. And I'm not going to cover plus spare. So forgive me. All right. So folks, RAID 1, RAID 0. Those are the two most common RAIDs you're going to see on your standard home computers. All right. So let me see if I can mess this up. One is stripe. One is mirrored. I believe that 0 is stripe, 1 is mirrored. Is that correct? RAID 0 is stripe, RAID 1 is mirrored. RAID 5, and that gives you, in a mirrored drive, that gives you one full parity drive. That means if one of your drives goes dead, the other one can pick up immediately. You can hot swap it out. If you have the right machine, put another one in. It'll do what's called rebuild. It'll copy the first drive to the second drive and truck on. Now, the reason that you would want to run a stripe and mirror is because you also want speed increment increases, because when you have data, instead of doing this to one drive, it does this to both drives. The problem with that is that there's no true parity bit. There's only a parity drive. And when most things are manufactured, hard drives tend to go out near each other in time if they're operating in the same environment, which makes a RAID 1.0 not appropriate for a dental office. Whereas a RAID 5 or a RAID 6, which has a true parity drive.
And RAID 6 has replaced RAID 5. RAID 5 is now considered legacy. Yes, yeah, because it's the same 2 drives.
It's faster.
And it's faster. Yeah.
Yeah. So RAID 6 was just coming out when I was building. Don't laugh at me for being old. So in your RAID environment, when you're looking at a RAID 6 now, if nothing has changed, you're looking at storing information bit number 1 on drives 1 and 3, and information bit number 2 on drives 2 and 3, and information bit number 3 on drives 1 and 2. No matter what happens, unless you lose 2 drives at the same time, all of your information is safe. Now we're going to bring that to another level, RAID 6.0, which also mirrors both of those drives. So the problem when you do that is that you have a functional decrease in the total amount of RAM, total amount of hard drive storage rather, that you have. And that's a problem because a lot of times you'll see these NAS sold and they have RAID 1, RAID 0, RAID 5, RAID 6, and they'll say it's a 40 terabyte network attached storage, NAS. But it's not truly 40 terabytes of storage. There's actually a functional decrease depending upon the number of parity bits you wish to have. Is that a relatively decent synopsis? Did you go to sleep?
I told Chris he was the smartest guy in the room, and he proceeded to show everybody that he was the smartest guy in the room. Yes, that is absolutely correct. Maybe I can dumb this down for my clients.
Well, I was trying to speak computerese. I wanted to make sure I didn't make any mistakes.
No, you did a really good job. Just essentially what it comes down to is speed and failure tolerance. That is really what we're talking about. All you guys need to worry about. So the best combination of both of those things is RAID 6. I think you could have talked me into doing a RAID 10, which is a 0+1, when RAID 5 was the standard.
Right.
You could have talked me into it, but right now RAID 6 is by far, so let's say we did 1 terabyte drives, we did 4 of them. That leaves you so that means before we did in a RAID, we have 4 terabytes of data to play with. If you do a RAID 6, it condenses it into a 2 terabyte data set. So it halves it, but again, 2 of those drives can go down without your practice ever having issues. So that's why we do a lot of the RAID 6 right now for that reason.
Now, if I remember correctly, whenever RAID 6 was first coming out, there was the ability to add a spare drive so that you could add parity bits. And there was a rule, I believe it was every 3 drives, you had to add 2 drives to obtain 1 extra parity bit or something like that. RAID 6, I'm not really knowledgeable about it all. So talk to us a little bit about the spares and parity bits. Obviously, the more parity bits you have, the safer it is.
Right. So if we just do a simple RAID 1, which is a 1-to-1 mirror, and let's say your server has room to have a 3rd drive, you can essentially have a superhero in waiting to take over for a drive that fails. Some systems can do it automatically. Some you have to activate it. With RAID 6, you can do the same thing, right?
So basically, it's not actually adding a parity bit. It's adding a parity drive or a potential parity drive.
That's right. So you just have something even more redundancy, right? So we have a 2 failure tolerance, but then we have drives ready to go in. Again, the larger and larger environment you go into, you're going to see this more and more often. You're going to see a server with just hard drives just lined up here. Like Chris's server is a RAID 6. It's got 4 hard drives ready to go. It's also got 4 expansion slots. So if we wanted to do something crazy in the future, we have room to add those hot spares, as we call them, or another data set. We can throw another partition on the server.
The only thing I don't have that I wanted is a hot swappable power supply, but I figured I was getting a little bit too redundant there. So
yeah, those are nice too. I know.
They're nice.
Yeah, they're really nice.
We'll nerd out again later. Remind me to tell you about the Mozart TX and also the Media Center.
Okay.
All right, guys. So anyway, Reuben and I are going to chat some more. I hope that this has been an educational experience for a lot of you guys. I hope that you're coming away from this knowing a little bit more about computers, a little bit more about backups, a little bit more about network security. And I would like to ask Reuben to come back on if you guys do like this and I haven't totally buried you in geekdom, which is possible. Go ahead and put some likes on here, put some comments, and put down some things you'd like us to cover that perhaps we didn't cover. I would love, for instance, to cover some of the more intricate details of networking and security, just so that whenever people throw words at you, you don't get buried in crap, that you truly understand what they're talking about.
Managed switches, unmanned switches, security cameras. So another area, Chris, I spend a lot of time in, as you know, is office design. We do about 45 practice build-outs a year, and more than that say no to me. So I'm designing usually about 130 offices, and we do about a third of them. So if anybody has any questions on like how to set up an operatory, I can be very useful there. Sound, we do 3 different sound systems that we offer. Any of these questions, again, but I'm not saying use me. I'm just saying use the information that I'm giving you through this podcast to just make you or let you make better decisions. Yeah, I'm an option of many out there.
Okay, so guys, real quick recap. If you were going to buy a computer yourself, the minimum specs that Reuben recommends for a front desk computer are
i5. I'll qualify that 8th or 9th gen hardware. Right, anything other than that is not new. 8 gigs of RAM. 16 would be the upgrade after that. 128 solid state hard drive because you're saving everything on the server. And if you don't trust that your staff is going to do that, have your IT set up a redirect to the server. And if you don't trust your IT to do that, back up that computer and get it a little bit larger hard drive.
Okay. All right. So if you are setting up a computer that is going to be used for 3D, what additions would you make to that base unit?
I would upgrade the CPU power, because think about when your 3D image is they call it stitching. They take 3 scans and they stitch it together. So get CPU. Go with we're talking about Intel here, which is the standard. Go with an i7. Go with 16 gigs of RAM. And then on the graphics card sides, the software in Vivo is a little bit heavier of a software. Usually you need at least, we talked about RAM in the memory sense. There's also RAM on the graphics card, not to confuse you guys here, which is important. And usually 2 is the minimum and 4 is recommended. So like in the computer that Chris just had me build, we went 4, which is the NVIDIA P1000. It's a workstation class processor.
All right, fantastic. And last question, and this is just for Sonny. If you had to build your own Bitcoin mining computer, what would your recommendation be? Would you be using a thread tripper to power it? And
Sonny, we're trying to get together for a Cincinnati Reds game here with Zach Allman.
Those are such good guys, man. They really are.
Oh, they're good dudes. If you have time to I'll say this about Bitcoin mining. If you have free electricity, go to town. Like, otherwise, it's just a hobby and it's essentially a one-to-one trade. But if I was going to college right now, let's say, and I had a dorm room with a university who's paying for electricity, my entire dorm room would be Bitcoin miners. It's insane. I'm surprised.
We're about to go full solar at the house.
Yeah.
We're going 100% off grid, and when we do, I'm rewarding myself by building a coin miner. So we'll be talking.
Okay.
The 1080s have come down a lot, right? But it's from what I understand, it's hard to get that price point to return. It's just, man, the algorithms are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think it's an unforeseen consequence of the way that they designed the crypto coin. But that's a totally different podcast.
Hey, well, Bitcoin is here to stay, so it's something to pay attention to for all you business investment nerds out there.
All right, folks, you have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for wasting a perfectly good hour of your time listening to the sound of my voice droning on. And Reuben, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Hope you guys do a better job at not working than Chris and I on Labor Day.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Dear Doc podcast, your source for the business and legal questions associated with your dental practice. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dear Doc podcast on all major platforms.